We are at Spa 2024 up, track temperature 36 degrees Celsius, air temperature 19 degrees Celsius, no rain reported.
You know me, DEX, voice of the booth and occasional pit lane gossip. Al's already scanned your driving history and he's concerned. Here's your emotionless co-host with all the data, Al.
The estimated strength of field is 1,247. We expect to be fighting for the podium. 5 cars left to grid. Still waiting on 2 cars to grid. Waiting on the final car to grid.
Race is on. Pro tip, surviving lap 1 is highly underrated. Highly. Did you see that? Did you see that switchback? Al, name, someone's going on the overtake of the day list.
Great pass, now up.
I think somebody miscalculated there. Did you see that switchback? Al, name, someone's going on the overtake of the day list.
Great pass, now up to P10.
You gave that everything defensively? No shame losing that.
Position lost, now in P11.
Explain that one to me. Well, that was tight, Al. Who just pulled that move and who's now rethinking life choices?
Great pass, now up to P10. Sector 2, Carlos is 0.7 seconds behind P9. P11 is 0.4 seconds behind Carlos.
You know what I love? That moment when the sun hits the track just right and blinds half the field. Oh, what just happened? That was interesting. That was surgical. Al, tell me who just climbed the ranks and who's feeling spicy now.
Great pass, now up to P10.
Position lost there, but honestly, the fight you put up probably cooked the other driver's tires a bit too.
Position lost, now in P11.
Oh, that looked messy. Bold, risky, and somehow it worked. Al, who was that on the inside line?
Great pass, now up to P10.
You defended well, but momentum won that battle.
Position lost, now in P11.
Sector dose complete. Time to find out if this lap's going viral or vanishing. Al?
Sector 2 complete.
We may need a replay for that. That's an overtake with attitude. Al, confirm who made the move and who just got schooled.
Great pass, now up to P9.
That curve launched the car directly into poor decision making.
New incident X1, total 1.
That lap,
end of lap 1. Carlos is running P9. Podium, P1 Mark, P2 Pavel, P3 Sven.
Lost the position there, but importantly, no contact and no damage. That matters in the long race.
Position lost, now in P10.
1X, the tires just visited a completely different ecosystem.
New incident X1, total 2.
No damage, car looks clean. Left side. Clear on the left.
Sector 2, Carlos is holding the gap to P8 at 0.9 seconds. P9 has reduced the gap to Carlos, it is now 0.1 seconds.
Oh, something's definitely happening here. What a move. Al, hit me. Who's up and who's down after that corner?
Great pass, now up to P9.
First splits in. Al's not laughing, so that's encouraging.
Sector 1 was smooth.
You fought hard for that spot, but the pressure finally got through.
Position lost, now in P10.
The fastest ever F1 pit stop, Red Bull nailed it in 1.82 seconds. I've seen people blink slower than that. The Porsche Cup car is basically a giant mechanical lie detector. If your technique is bad, everybody finds out immediately. In 2022, Sebring claimed more suspension arms than any other IMSA track. Bumpy, brutal, and absolutely unforgiving. That place eats setups for breakfast. Carnage on the exit now. Who's responsible and who's now got arrow made of dreams.
New incident X1, total 3.
Fast, dramatic, and only slightly terrifying.
End of lap 2. Carlos is running P10. Podium, P1 Mark, P2 Pavel, P3 Falco. GT3 drivers are incredible. They can drive side by side at 250 kilometers an hour, then completely fail parking at the supermarket. Sector 2, Carlos has reduced the gap to P9, it is now 0.6 seconds. Carlos has...
Did you see that? Explain that one to me. Now that was a proper dive-by bomb. Al, who's responsible, and is it legal in their country?
Great pass, now up to P7.
Did you see that switchback? Al, name, someone's going on the overtake of the day list.
Great pass, now up to P8.
1X, that apex was missed so badly, it may require a search party.
New incident X1, total 4.
Alright, Sector 1 done. Time to find out if this lap has legs or just feelings.
New incident X1, total 5.
Alright, 2 sectors down. Al, give me a sign. Is this lap worth finishing with pride?
Sector 2 complete.
Al, be honest. How many drivers here are actually running the fuel they think they're running? Statistically speaking, not enough. Fun fact, GT3 racing became popular partly because fans loved seeing totally different cars fighting together. Also because loud engines make everyone happy. You ever notice that I think somebody miscalculated there? That was textbook side-by-side racing. Al, tell me who's got nerves of steel and who's now in therapy.
Great pass, now up to P6.
End of the lap and we're still in one piece. That's progress. Al, tell me we're not last.
End of lap 3. Carlos is running P6. Podium, P1 Mark, P2 Pavel, P3 Falco.
That line through the corner was beautiful. Somewhere, a driving coach just shed a proud tear. Fun fact, race engineers spend years learning data analysis, only to hear drivers say, "Yeah mate, car feels weird."
Sector 2, the gap to P5 has increased. Carlos is now 3.0 seconds behind. P7 has reduced the gap to Carlos, it is now 0.2 seconds.
Sector 1 complete. Not bad, not brilliant, but we're still facing the right way.
No drama in Sector 1.
Top-level drivers know how to mentally reset after mistakes. The rest of us think about one bad corner for 3 business days. Professional racers know exactly when to risk everything and when to back out. That's why they stay professionals. The greatest racers understand weight transfer perfectly. They know exactly when the car is loaded, balanced, or moments away from embarrassing.
The car in C1 just set the fastest lap.
That was not a mistake. That was a full cinematic event. Racing drivers spend thousands improving their simulators just to ignore braking markers. You know what's amazing about GT3 racing? Even professional drivers still enter corners thinking, hopefully this works. Al, if you ever become self-aware, promise me you'll never review my telemetry. Some drivers race with patience and precision. Others drive like unpaid stunt performers. That was a strong lap.
End of lap 4. Carlos is running P6. Podium, P1 Mark, P2 Pavel, P3 Falco. Sector 2, the gap to P5 has increased. Carlos is now 3.9 seconds behind. Carlos is holding the gap to P7 at 0.3 seconds.
Motorsport is the only hobby where destroying expensive equipment still counts as a learning experience. Sector 2's in the bag. The question is clean or just lucky? Al, do your thing.
Sector 2 complete.
The Mazda 787B was so loud at Le Mans 1991 it shattered earplugs. It also won. Rotary engines. Scream now. Apologize now. Fun fact, Porsche Cup cars don't use traction control or ABS, which means every corner exit is basically a trust exercise. GT3 racing is beautiful because every car has a different personality. The Porsche dances, the Ferrari screams, and the AMG sounds permanently angry. We made it to the line again. Al, confirm I'm still a racing driver and not just sightseeing.
End of lap 5. Carlos is running P6. Podium, P1 Mark, P2 Pavel, P3 Falco.
Professional drivers are unbelievably smooth on the steering wheel. Meanwhile, most sim racers fight the wheel like they're wrestling a crocodile.
Sector 2, Carlos has reduced the gap to P5, it is now 3.2 seconds. Carlos is holding the gap to P7 at 0.3 seconds.
Alright, Sector 1 done. Time to find out if this lap has legs or just feelings.
No drama in Sector 1.
That overtake was smoother than most people's attempts at flirting.
You're pulling away from the car behind. The gap is 1.4 seconds.
Professional drivers spend years perfecting consistency. One fast lap means nothing if the next 5 are chaos. Someone out there thinks this is their shot at glory, and someone else just thinks it's a Tuesday. And that, my friends, is the beauty of cyclism. Ladies and gentlemen, GT3 racing officially arrived around 2005 with one mission: make racing spectacular without manufacturers spending the GDP of a small country. Honestly, motorsport.
19.558.
Professional drivers are unbelievably disciplined with throttle control. They feed power in smoothly. The rest of us just stomp on it and hope. The engineer is happy, probably temporarily.
End of lap 6. Carlos is running P6. Podium, P1 Mark, P2 Pavel, P3 Pep.
Top-level drivers are incredibly patient during overtakes. Amateur drivers see half a gap and immediately activate chaos mode.
Sector 2, Carlos has reduced the gap to P5, it is now 2.5 seconds. Carlos is holding the gap to P7 at 0.3 seconds.
Fun fact, Porsche 911 still carries the engine hanging out the back like physics is just a friendly suggestion. The driver ahead is defending like that position comes with free rent and lifetime fuel discounts. Cross the line for Sector 2. Now the real panic begins. Al, what's the verdict? Get escaped.
Sector 2 complete.
If you're watching this and not driving, congrats, you're already having a better race than half the grid will after lap 1. Al, I think drivers secretly enjoy suffering. There's no other explanation for willingly racing in the rain. That move had confidence, commitment, and just enough danger to make engineers nervous. And remember, everyone, racing drivers don't grow old emotionally. They just develop more expensive hobbies. One more lap in the books and somehow nobody exploded.
End of lap 7. Carlos is running P6. Podium, P1.
I don't think that went to plan. What a move. Al, hit me. Who's up and who's down after that corner?
Great pass, now up to P5.
Le Mans has been won by just a few seconds after 24 hours of racing. In 2011, Audi beat Peugeot by 30.8 seconds. That's less than a pit lane mistake.
Sector 2, Carlos has reduced the gap to P4, it is now 1.5 seconds. Carlos has increased the gap to P6, it is now 0.8 seconds.
First splits in, Al's not laughing, so that's encouraging.
Sector 1 was smooth.
At Le Mans, the sun rises at Terre Rouge. It's beautiful, also blinding, and more than one race leader has missed their breaking point right there. Somebody out there is already preparing a 3-page explanation for why that incident wasn't their fault. In IMSA, driver changes can happen in less than 25 seconds, including seat swap, belts, and a radio check. That's choreography on caffeine. Somewhere out there, a driver is absolutely convinced the setup is the problem. It is almost never the setup. Toyota GR010 hybrid in WEC has more computing power than the first space shuttle, and sometimes still runs wide at no rouge. One more lap done, and the rear tires are reconsidering their existence.
End of lap 8. Carlos is running P5. Podium, P1 Mark, P2 Pavel, P3 Falco. That braking zone looked extremely ambitious and briefly historical. The best racers are incredibly adaptable. Dry track, wet track, traffic, pressure, they just keep delivering laps. Fun fact, in endurance racing, avoiding trouble is often faster than pure aggression. Survival is speed. Professional drivers always leave a tiny margin for mistakes. Unless it's qualifying, then the margin disappears completely. That's a tough one mentally. One small mistake is all it takes. Position lost, now in P6.
While somebody's in trouble, that impact definitely moved something spiritually.
New incident X4.
Explain that one to me. That was
Great pass, now up to P6.
Oh, we may need a replay for that. Sweet move through the chicane. Al, who's the hero and who's the highlight reel victim?
Great pass, now up to P5.
Wow, that's a big one. Al, who just turned their car into confetti.
New incident X1, total 6.
Sometimes the smartest move is letting one car through instead of losing 3 positions fighting too hard.
Position lost, now in P7. Sector 2, the gap to P4 has increased. Carlos is now 2.0 seconds behind. P6 has reduced the gap to Carlos, it is now 0.1 seconds.
That felt almost professional. Al, hit me with the split. Are we flying or faking it?
Sector 2 complete.
Alright Al, serious question before we continue. If robots eventually take over motorsport, do humans still get to blame tire pressures and bad setups? Progress.
End of lap 9. Carlos is running P5. Podium, P1 Mark, P2 Pavel, P3 Falco.
Ah, there goes the position.
Position lost, now in P6. You can train, you can tune, you can tweak every setup, but nothing prepares you for the chaos of a full grid and zero patience. Good luck out there. Something happened there. What's going on here? Oh no, that's a full send. New incident X4, total 14.
Oh, what just happened? That was interesting. Well, that was tight, Al, who just pulled that move and who's now rethinking life choices.
Great pass, now up to P6.
Tough one. This is far from over. While things are getting spicy, 4X, heavy contact, big crash.
New incident X4, total 18.
Sometimes you just have to accept a good overtake.
Position lost, now in P7. Sector 2, Carlos has reduced the gap to P5, it is now 0.4 seconds. Carlos is holding the gap to P7 at 0.1 seconds.
Lost the position there, but importantly, no contact in.
Position lost, now in P8.
Al, did that actually just happen? That's an overtake with attitude. Al, confirm who made the move and who just got schooled.
Great.
But we need to talk about that one. What a move. Al, hit me. Who's up and who's down after that corner?
Great pass. Now up to P7.
That was always going to be difficult to hold. The smart move now is to reset and stay in the fight.
Position lost. Now in P8.
That hurts a little.
Position lost. Now in P8.
Absolute chaos in that corner. Al, who's collecting incident points like NFTs.
New incident X1. Total 19.
Sector 1 down. If this lap had a heartbeat, it's still alive.
Sector 1 was smooth.
Had enough curb usage to qualify as off-road driving.
End of lap 10. Carlos is running P8. Podium, P1 Mark, P2 Pavel, P3 Falco.
In 2022, Sebring claimed more suspension arms than any other IMSA track. Bumpy, brutal, and absolutely unforgiving. That place eats setups for breakfast.
The gap is 1.5 seconds.
Sector 2, the gap to P7 has increased. Carlos is now 1.5 seconds behind. Carlos has increased the gap to P9, it is now 0.5 seconds.
You ever wonder what happens if you never lift in turn 1? Me neither. But someone out there is about to find out. Place your bets, folks. Sector 2's in the bag. The question is clean or just lucky? Al, do your thing.
Sector 2 complete.
You know what I love? That moment when the sun hits the track just right and blinds half the field. It's like nature's flashbang. That line through the corner was beautiful. Somewhere, a driving coach just shed a proud tear. Fun fact. Race engineers spend years learning data analysis, only to hear drivers say, "Yeah, mate, the car feels weird."
You've got about 2 laps of fuel.
Some drivers treat curbs with respect. Others attack them like unresolved childhood trauma. And that's the checkered flag. What a ride. What a mess. What a memory. Al, give us the final top 3 before we shut this circus down.
Good job.
Carlos finished the race in P8. The podium is P1 Mark, P2 Pavel, and P3 Falco.